Let's begin. This session is focused on KEA evidence support for teachers in preparing for the status summary. This information is posted on the Northwest Live Binder for kindergarten entry assessment. First, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Cindy Dewey, and I'm standing in today for Nikki Young because baby boy Young is on the way. Nikki's at the hospital today, and we're anticipating that baby boy Young will arrive by 5 p.m. This is such exciting news for us and our team. And we also wanted to make you aware that you will have a support team while Nikki is at home caring for her new baby. You'll either be supported by Donna Albaugh and Sherry Willis as support team 1, or by Abby Hoffman and myself, Cindy Dewey. And we'll reach out to you so that you know who is going to support you while Nikki is away. So let's begin talking about the KEA critical components. One component is selecting learning targets, and this is when teachers ask themselves, what is the next skill that the student needs to learn? Teachers also develop criteria for success, and this is when teachers think about what will it look like when the learning target has been met by my students. The focus of today is on eliciting evidence of learning. And teachers think about what can help me learn what the student knows. And then also today we're going to be talking about what do the evidence of learning tell me about the student. So those two things together. What is it that can help me know what students know? And then what do these evidence of learning tell me? And then also part of the formative assessment process is once I know this information, how do I use it to respond to my students' needs? So let's think about eliciting evidence of learning. What do we mean by evidence? For the kindergarten entry, that means the documentation of what you observe the child doing. These could be pictures or videos and observational notes. So we have several new resources to support you as you go about this work. There is a KEA evidence document. There's a teacher resource that walks you through how to prepare for the status summary. And then there's an observational notes video. And all of those things are on the Northwest Regional Live Binder, and I'd like to take you there now. So here's the Northwest KEA Formative Assessment Resources Live Binder, and this is standing in for the wiki. As you know, our wiki resources are being replaced. So on the Live Binder, if you go to this Go To Meetings KEA Evidences tab, it's right after the table of contents and announcements, is this tab here. There are several sub-tabs here. And on the first one, you're going to find some recordings and information about the Go To Meetings. And then here's the first resource. I want to show you some really important things about this resource. So here it talks about, in the beginning, about observing students. So here are some effective practices for supporting formative assessment and how we gather this evidence, how we elicit evidence during observations. And then here's what I think is really fantastic for teachers in this resource. Here are some example observational notes. And not only are the observational notes here, there's some information about how to interpret what you see. And it gives you a couple of different examples. So you might see a child doing something like what you see in this picture to the left. While at the Math Center, Carlos counted 13 objects accurately without missing any in the tub. I then dumped them onto the table and asked, how many bells do you have? And Carlos said without hesitation, still 13. I then observed Carlos putting his materials away, checking his name off the center list and choosing a new center. So there's a lot to observe there. So that can be matched to the object counting construct and also the following direction directions construct, and then it gives you the learning status for each of those. So that evidence, that piece of evidence that was gathered through that observational note has also been interpreted. So those are those 2 steps along the formative assessment process that we talked about earlier. How do I know what my student knows? And then that second step around what does this mean for my student, right? And then again, here's another observational note, and it's matched to the skill steps along the construct progression. So great examples of observational notes along with the interpretation. And then here's in this box just around things to do when you're writing observational notes, the do's of writing observational notes. You know, the facts to include, what you see and hear, and how to use that data to inform your instruction. Again, another great example of an observational note. And then how you can use the technology platform to support your work. Another great example of an observational note and how to interpret that evidence to support your students' growth. Some reflection questions to ask yourself, and then a nice PLC activity. Again, another example of an observational note. So this resource in particular is just packed with lots of things that I think you'll find useful. Now here is on the second tab, now I've clicked the second tab, here's a teacher resource for preparing for the status summary. And here you can just ask yourself these questions to help you take a look at your evidences. So thinking about all your evidences collected, do you have the evidence you need to determine a status summary? And does your evidence reflect what you know about the child? And then we've color-coded these questions to match the example below. So if we just look at the red, for example, the first red question, does your observational note include the context of the observation? So then we look down at the red in the example, and I see where it says Patrick was at the Art Center. So that's the example of the context that answers this question. So that's what this color coding helps you to do when you're thinking about your observational note. Let's look just at the green, for example. Is your observational note matched to the skill steps along the progression? So let's see how they do it in this example. It says without recounting the markers. So I know that when a student counts and doesn't have to recount, like the example that I first read in the other KEA document where the child said still 13, that was without recounting, and that's a skill step along the construct progression. So I know that that observational note, the one here with Patrick and the one we read before, is matched to a skill step along the progression. So that just helps us to think a little more deeply about our observational notes. That's what the top of this document does. And then the second page is just a step-by-step for completing the status summary. So you go in and you click the status summary tab and then select by class, and then it just walks you through step-by-step how to complete your status summaries. And then finally, we have one more resource for you, and this video you can use with your teaching partner, with your PLC, and it walks you through some examples of observational notes, and it supports you, giving you time to write observational notes, giving you examples, providing time, and some really just walking you through here's the do's and the don'ts of observational note writing. I think it could be really helpful practice around the kindergarten entry evidence writing. So these are the 3 new resources that we have, all found on this GoToMeeting KEA Evidences tab. The final one is for administrators. So for teachers, we have the newsletter, the KEA Evidence Preparing for Status Summary, and this nice video that you can watch with your team. And I hope that has been helpful for you.